Tonight's episode includes a Manta Sleep affiliate link, which helps support the show at no extra cost to you. If you've ever tried sleeping with a regular sleep mask and found that light still gets in around the edges, or the mask presses against your eyes and just feels uncomfortable, Manta Sleep takes a different approach. Their masks are designed to give you a true blackout experience while keeping pressure off your eyes, so you can actually relax and forget you're wearing one. They also have several different versions depending on how you sleep, and one of the coolest is their Bluetooth audio sleep mask. It combines the blackout mask with built-in audio so you can listen to music, white noise, or even your favorite sleep stories without having earbuds in your ears all night. And for a podcast like this, that combination just makes sense. Block out the light, put on a story, and let everything else disappear for a while. If you're looking to upgrade your nighttime routine, check out Manta Sleep and find the mask that works best for you. You can find a direct link to them in the description of each episode. They also ship worldwide. Thanks for supporting the show. Now, let's get started. Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. And tonight, you are invited to wander through a quiet, rain-washed village where soft shoes meet old stone paths, and every gentle step carries the mind toward rest. Settle now as comfortably as you can and allow the room around you to become simple and kind. Let the weight of the day loosen from your shoulders. Let your hands soften. Let your jaw unclench. There is nowhere else you need to be. Nothing else you need to solve, and no task waiting for your attention in this peaceful moment. Take a slow breath in, as though you are breathing in the scent of rain on warm stone. Then let it go, as though the breath were a small silver stream slipping quietly away. Outside the imagined window, rain falls with patience. It does not hurry. It does not ask to be noticed. It simply arrives, bead by bead, touching the leaves, the roofs, the garden walls, and the narrow lanes with a sound so soft it seems almost woven from silk. The world grows dim and gentle beneath a veil of mist. Lamps glow in windows. Chimneys breathe pale ribbons into the evening air. Somewhere a gate sways with a tender creak, and the old stones of the path shine like smooth pebbles at the bottom of a shallow brook. With every breath, the body becomes a little heavier, and the mind becomes a little lighter. Thoughts may come and go, but they do not need to be followed. They can pass like raindrops sliding down glass. Let them drift, let them soften, let them fall away. And now as the rain continues its quiet song, the story begins to move on by itself gently and slowly, like a lantern carried down a path. In a village tucked between low green hills and a silver ribbon of river, there lived a quiet cobbler named Rowan. His shop stood at the corner where the market lane curved toward the old bridge, and its little windows were always warm with amber light. Above the door hung a wooden sign painted with a pair of shoes, though the paint had faded in places and the edges of the sign were smoothed by years of weather. When the wind moved through the street, the sign gave a small, sleepy tap against the wall, as though reminding the village that comfort could be mended, shaped, and stitched. Rowan was known not for grand boots or polished buckles, but for soft shoes, house shoes, walking shoes, slippers for cold floors, garden shoes that could cross wet grass without complaint, and little velvet shoes made for children who like to creep quietly through libraries and under tables. His hands were patient. He understood leather, wool, linen, felt, and the gentle curve of a foot at rest. He knew that a shoe should not simply carry a person from place to place. It should reassure them. It should make the world feel a little kinder beneath them. On rainy days, the shop was especially peaceful. Rain tapped the slanted roof and trembled in silver lines down the window panes. The stones outside grew dark and glossy. Puddles gathered in the shallow hollows of the lane, holding pieces of sky, chimney, and lamplight. The scent of beeswax, cedar, soft leather, and rain drifted through the rooms. Rowan would sit at his bench with a needle and awl, working by the glow of a shaded lamp, while the village moved slowly around him. There was always a special hush when rain fell on the stone paths. The village was old, and its paths had been laid by hands long gone, each stone chosen and nestled beside another until the lanes curved like streams between cottages, gardens, and small stone walls. In dry weather, carts rattled, children ran, and chickens scratched between the cracks. But in rain, everything became softer. Footsteps blurred, voices lowered. The stones shone, and the village seemed to remember a dream it had once had. On a certain evening, when the sky was the color of blue-gray wool, and the rain had been falling since morning, Rowan finished a pair of shoes unlike any he had made before. They were soft as moss and pale as moonlit linen, lined with lamb's wool and stitched with thread the color of wet slate. The soles were made from a strange, supple hide brought to him many months earlier by a traveler with a cloak full of rain. The traveler had said little, only that the material came from a valley where clouds rested on the ground and people walked as lightly as thoughts. Rowan had saved it, waiting for the right use. He had turned it over in his hands now and then, feeling its quiet strength. It bent without creasing. It held warmth without heaviness. When brushed, it gave off the faint scent of rain and wild thyme, and on that long, rainy day, for reasons he could not quite name, Rowan had chosen it from the shelf, laid it on the table, and begun to make a pair of soft walking shoes. He did not know who they were for. That happened sometimes. A pair of shoes seemed to arrive before its owner. Rowan had learned not to worry about such things. The village had its ways of bringing feet to shoes and shoes to feet. When the final stitch was tied, he set the shoes on the bench before him. They looked modest, simple, almost plain. But as the lamplight touched them, their pale surface seemed to hold a quiet glow, as though they remembered dawn hidden behind rain clouds. Rowan leaned back in his chair. Outside, a bell rang somewhere near the river, slow and soft. The rain deepened for a moment, filling the lane with a whispering sound. Then came a knock at the door. It was not hurried. It was not loud. It was the kind of knock that could almost be mistaken for a branch tapping the shutters. Rowan opened the door and found an old woman standing beneath the eave. Her cloak was dark and shining with rain, and her hair, silver white, was braided loosely over her shoulder. She carried no umbrella, but the rain seemed to rest upon her without chilling her. Her eyes were calm, and in their depths was the reflected glow of many little lamps. "Good evening," said Rowan. "Good evening," she replied. "I have walked farther than I expected, and my feet have grown tired." Rowan stepped aside at once. "Come in and warm yourself." The woman entered, and the room seemed to become quieter around her. She removed her cloak and hung it near the stove, where drops of rain began to fall from the hem in a slow, silvery rhythm. Her shoes were worn thin, and the soles were cracked from long travel over rough places. Rowan noticed at once the careful way she placed her feet, as though each step required forgiveness from the ground. "I may have just the thing," he said. He brought the new shoes from the bench and set them before her. The old woman looked down at them, and a smile moved gently across her face. "Ah," she said, "they have been waiting." Rowan did not ask how she knew. He knelt and helped her remove the old shoes, setting them beside the stove to dry. Then he slipped the new pair onto her feet. They fit as though they had been made from the shape of her wrist. The woman stood, and her expression softened with relief. "It is like stepping into a quiet room," she said. Rowan smiled, pleased in the way only a maker can be when something has found its rightful place. The woman walked slowly across the shop. Her new shoes made no sound on the wooden floor, not even the faintest creak. When she reached the window, she looked out at the rainy lane where the stones glimmered beneath the lamplight. "These shoes are too gentle to remain indoors," she said. "Would you walk with me a little way?" Rowan glanced at the tools on his bench, the lamp, the shelves, the dry warmth of the shop. He had worked all day and should perhaps have stayed inside, but the rain outside was soft, and the village paths had taken on that old, glistening beauty that seemed to invite quiet company. He put on his own worn coat and a pair of felt-lined shoes he had made years before. Together he and the woman stepped into the evening. The rain touched Rowan's face like cool fingertips. It ran in small threads from the tiled roofs and gathered on the leaves of window boxes. The stone path beneath them shone with water, each uneven slab holding the glow of lanterns. Here and there, puddles reflected yellow windows, so that it seemed they walked between lanterns above and lanterns below. The old woman's new shoes moved over the stones with astonishing softness. They did not splash. They did not slip. They seemed to know where to find the gentlest part of each step. Rowan watched, quietly amazed, as her pace became easier. Her shoulders lowered. Her breath lengthened. The rain purled on the pale shoes and slid away, leaving them clean and softly glowing. They walked past the baker's cottage where the smell of cooling bread drifted through a cracked window. The baker's cat sat beneath an overturned crate, watching the rain with golden eyes. They passed the apothecary garden, where rosemary, lavender, and mint leaned over the low wall, their leaves dark and fragrant. Water gathered on the tips of the herbs before falling onto the stones in little bright drops. The village was not silent, but every sound was softened. A kettle sang behind a door. A chair moved across a floor. Someone laughed quietly, then hushed themselves as though remembering the rain. Farther away, the river murmured beneath the bridge. The old woman led Rowan down a lane he knew well. Yet in the rain it seemed unfamiliar, as if another village had been laid gently over the first. The stones were smoother than he remembered. Moss glowed in the cracks. Tiny ferns grew from the shaded side of a wall. A snail made its patient way along a doorstep, carrying its little spiral house like a secret. At the end of the lane stood the arch of the old bridge. It was made of pale stone, darkened by rain, with ivy hanging down one side. Beneath it the river moved slowly, full from the weather, carrying leaves, petals, and reflections of the clouds. Rowan and the old woman paused at the center of the bridge. "Listen," she said. Rowan listened. At first he heard only rain and river. Then slowly he noticed the many layers within them. The rain on rooftops was low and hollow. The rain on leaves was tender and bright. The rain on the river disappeared into itself. The rain on the stone bridge made a sound like soft hands brushing cloth. Beneath all of it was the steady hush of water, moving onward, without haste. "Every path has a voice in the rain," said the old woman. Rowan rested his hands on the cool stone rail. "I have walked these paths all my life," he said, "and I think I have never heard them quite like this. That is because tonight you are not walking to arrive," she said. "You are walking to listen." They continued across the bridge and into the older part of the village, where the houses stood closer together and the lanes narrowed into winding passages. Lanterns hung beneath little roofs beside blue doors and green doors, and doors painted the deep red of autumn apples. Rain slid down the doorsteps and gathered in the worn centers of the paths. The old woman's soft shoes moved steadily onward, and Rowan found himself matching her slow, restful pace. At the edge of the village, beyond the last row of cottages, there was a path that climbed toward the hill gardens. It was made from larger stones, flatter and older than those below, and bordered by low walls covered in lichen. In summer, the path was busy with gardeners and children and people carrying baskets of beans or flowers. But now in the rainy twilight, it was empty. Mist lay over the gardens, and the bare branches of pear trees reached upward like fine ink lines drawn against the cloudy sky. The old woman began to climb. Rowan followed. The path was slick, yet her shoes found firm places. They seemed to settle gently on each stone, never hurrying, never faltering. Rowan thought of all the shoes he had made for people in haste: boots for merchants, slippers for weddings, repaired soles needed before dawn. He thought of how many feet had crossed his threshold, bringing stories of errands, journeys, work, and return. Yet here in the rain, walking without destination, he felt the true purpose of shoes in a new way. They were not only for movement, they were for trust. They let a person meet the earth without fear. Halfway up the hill, the old woman stopped beside a garden gate. Beyond it, rows of winter cabbages glistened in the rain, and glass cloches covered tender herbs. A small stone shed stood near the wall, its roof thick with moss. The woman opened the gate. Though Rowan did not see her lift the latch, inside the garden the air was cool and green. Rain tapped on the glass bells with delicate rounded sounds. The soil smelled rich and dark. Tiny streams ran between the beds, carrying loose petals and bits of straw. At the far end of the garden, under a sheltering elder tree, stood a bench. They sat. For a while neither spoke. The rain continued. The village below blurred into soft gold and gray. The river curved beyond the rooftops, and the hills beyond the river disappeared into mist. Rowan felt the day leaving him, not abruptly, but little by little, like warmth fading from a stone after sunset. His thoughts slowed. The muscles in his hands relaxed. His breathing settled into the rhythm of rain. The old woman looked down at her shoes. "In my younger days," she said, "I walked wherever there was a path, and sometimes where there was none. I crossed fields silver with frost. I followed lanes under summer dust. I climbed stairways carved into cliffs and crossed bridges made from fallen trees. But the paths I loved most were always the rainy stone paths." "Why those?" asked Rowan. "Because they remember," she said. "Stone keeps memory. Rain wakes it. When a soft shoe touches wet stone, the earth speaks very quietly." Rowan looked at the path beyond the gate. Each stone did seem alive in its stillness, darkened and shining as though holding centuries of footsteps inside it. He imagined all who had climbed there before, gardeners with baskets, lovers walking beneath shared cloaks, children chasing rolling hoops, old friends arm in arm, villagers carrying lanterns through fog, travelers pausing to ask the way. The stones had held them all, and tonight the rain had polished their memories into a gentle glow. "What do they say?" Rowan asked. The old woman's eyes warmed. "Mostly they say, 'You have been carried. You may rest.'" A calmness moved through Rowan then. It was not a thought exactly. It was more like a blanket drawn around the heart. He had spent so many years helping others walk comfortably that he had forgotten, perhaps, to feel carried himself. The rain, the bench, the old stones, and the quiet woman beside him all seemed to offer the same message. "You have been carried, you may rest." After a long while, the old woman rose. "There is still a little farther to go." They left the garden and continued up the path. The mist thickened around them, turning the world pale and soft. The village lamps below became small, blurred stars. The stones underfoot widened, and moss grew thick along their edges. The rain was lighter now, almost a drizzle, Though the air was full of moisture, every breath tasted of leaves, stone, and distant wood smoke. At the top of the hill stood an ancient rain shelter. It was a simple structure of stone pillars and a roof of slate, open on all sides. No one knew who had built it. Shepherds used it sometimes. So did children caught in sudden weather. Rowan had seen it often from below, but he rarely climbed so high in the evening. Inside the shelter, the stone floor was dry around the edges and damp in the middle, where rain had drifted in. The old woman stepped beneath the roof and looked out across the mist. Rowan stood beside her. The world had become quiet and immense. Then, from somewhere beyond the shelter came a faint sound. It was not thunder, nor wind, nor the river. It was a tread of many soft steps, approaching over wet stone. Rowan turned. From the misty path on the other side of the hill, figures were coming into view. They walked slowly, wrapped in cloaks of gray, green, brown, and blue. Some were tall, some small, some bent with age, some light as children, though their faces were hard to see beneath hoods and rain. Each wore soft shoes. Some shoes were woven from grass, some from felt, some from pale leather, some from what looked like folded leaves. None made more than a whisper against the stones. They entered the shelter one by one and bowed their heads to the old woman. She greeted each with a quiet nod. Rowan felt no fear. The gathering was strange, certainly, but it was strange in the way a dream is strange when it is kind. The figures carried the scent of forests, meadows, old libraries, candle smoke, and mountain rain. A small childlike figure held a lantern filled not with flame, but with glowing mist. An elderly man, with a beard like milkweed fluff, carried a staff of willow. A woman whose cloak seemed sown with raindrops smiled at Rowan as though she had known his grandfather and his grandfather's grandfather. "These are the keepers of gentle paths," said the old woman. "They come whenever the rain is long enough and the stones are willing." Rowan bowed awkwardly, feeling the humility of a craftsman in the presence of an older craft. The keepers gathered in a loose circle. No ceremony began, at least not one with grand gestures or spoken words. Instead, they simply stood in quiet companionship while the rain fell around the shelter. Some placed their hands on the stone pillars. Others looked out into the mist. One knelt and touched the floor with fingertips, as though feeling for a pulse. At last, the old woman stepped into the center. Her pale shoes rested upon a square stone darker than the others. The rain beyond the shelter grew softer still, until the whole hill seemed to be listening. She began to walk slowly around the circle. With each step, the shoes gave a faint glow. Not bright, not startling, but gentle, like moonlight seen through curtains. The glow touched the wet stone and spread into the fine seams between the slabs, the seams filled with silver. The moss along the edges shimmered. Farther down the path, stone after stone answered with the same quiet light, until a thread of pale radiance wound down the hill toward the village. Rowan watched in wonder as the light moved along the rainy paths below. It slipped past garden gates, under ivy arches, across the bridge, around the market lane, and toward the cottages where people slept or read or stirred soup by warm stoves. It did not enter houses. It did not disturb anyone. It simply rested in the stones, reminding them of softness. "The village has had a tired year," said the old woman. "There have been heavy boots, hurrying feet, hard news carried from door to door. The paths have borne it all. Tonight they are being soothed." The keepers began to walk too, each taking a slow path around the shelter, and their soft shoes made small trails of light. The rain received the light and carried it in droplets. Rowan saw each raindrop brighten briefly before falling into the mist. The whole hill seemed to breathe. Then the old woman looked at Rowan. He understood, though no request had been spoken. He stepped forward, his own shoes plain and well worn. They were not magical, not made from Cloud Valley hide, not lined with moonlight. They were only the shoes he had made for himself years before, comfortable and mended, shaped by daily use. He walked. At first, nothing happened. His soles met the stone quietly. Then he felt something through them, the cool steadiness of the hill, the patient weight of time, the memory of rain after rain after rain. He took another step, slower. The stone seemed to receive him. Another step. His breathing deepened. Another. The path beneath him warmed slightly, not with heat, but with recognition. A soft amber glow appeared where his foot had been. It was small, but it remained. The old woman smiled. Rowan continued around the circle. His steps joined the silver trails of the keepers, adding the warm color of lamplight from a cobbler's window. As he walked, he thought of the people whose shoes he had made. He thought of the school teacher with sore heels, the fisherwoman with cold toes, the baker who stood before the ovens all day, the little boy who wore out every sole by spring, the grandmother who needed slippers soft enough for swollen feet. He thought of all their steps crossing the stone paths of the village, each carrying some private burden, some hope, some errand, some love. The glow beneath him deepened. The old stone seemed to sigh. When the walking was finished, the keepers stood still. The path down the hill shone faintly through the rain, not enough to wake anyone, but enough to guide the dreams of those already asleep. The village below looked peaceful beyond words. Even the river seemed slower, carrying the reflected light in small, trembling pieces. The old woman touched Rowan's shoulder. A maker of soft shoes is also a keeper of gentle paths, whether he knows it or not. Rowan bowed his head, not knowing what to say. The figures in the shelter began to depart as quietly as they had arrived. They stepped into the mist, their cloaks fading into rain and shadow. The childlike figure with the lantern looked back once, then lifted the lantern in farewell. Its misty light winked softly and then was gone. Soon only Rowan and the old woman remained. They started down the hill. The descent felt like moving through a dream that had no need to be remembered sharply. The path glowed faintly beneath the rain. Rowan's shoes were damp but warm. The old woman's pale shoes stepped beside him with easy grace. The village slowly grew larger below them. Window by window, roof by roof, it returned from the mist. They passed the garden gate, the elder tree, the glass cloches, beaded with rain. They crossed the bridge where the river murmured the same old song in a new soft voice. They walked by the apothecary garden where the herbs leaned fragrant and dark. They passed the baker's cottage where the cat had fallen asleep beneath the crate with its tail curled over its paws. At the cobbler's shop, the lamp still burned in the window. Rowan opened the door, and warmth welcomed them inside. The old woman's cloak by the stove was dry now, though Rowan could not remember leaving it long enough for that. Her old cracked shoes had vanished. In their place near the hearth rested a small bundle of pale thread neatly tied. "For repairs," she said, noticing his gaze. "Though I think those shoes will not need much mending." She drew her cloak around her shoulders. Rowan wanted to ask where she would go next, whether he would see her again, whether the keepers of gentle paths were always near, or only on rainy nights. But the questions felt too sharp for the softness of the hour, so he simply said, "May your feet be comfortable, and may your heart be also," she replied. Then she opened the door and stepped into the rain. The lane outside glowed faintly under her feet. She walked away along the stones, growing smaller beneath the lamplight until mist folded around her, and she was gone. Rowan stood at the doorway for a while. Rain touched the threshold. The village breathed in sleep. At last, he closed the door, turned down the lamp, and sat by the stove. He did not return to his workbench. He did not tidy the tools or count the coins in the drawer. He only removed his shoes and rested his feet on the warm braided rug. The room was still. The rain continued. Somewhere deep in the stones outside, a soft light remained. In the days that followed, the villagers noticed something they could not quite explain. Walking through the lanes felt easier. The old bridge seemed less steep. The hill path seemed kinder underfoot. People who had hurried began to slow without knowing why. They paused to look at moss on walls, raindrops on railings, lamplight in puddles. Children discovered that if they stepped gently after rain, the stones seemed to shine back at them. Elders found they could walk a little farther in the evening. Even the dogs padded more quietly along the lanes, as if respecting some new calm beneath their paws. And Rowan, in his little shop at the corner of the market lane, made more soft shoes than ever. He made them for wet mornings and quiet evenings, for garden walks and fireside hours, for travelers and homebodies, for people with long roads ahead and people who needed only to cross a room in comfort. Sometimes he stitched pale thread into the soles, so subtly that no one noticed unless the light caught it just so. Sometimes when rain fell all day and the stones outside shone like polished shells, he would pause at his window and listen. He heard the rain on rooftops. He heard the rain on leaves. He heard the rain on stone, and beneath it all, very softly, he heard the same reassurance. The paths are holding. The feet may rest. The journey can be gentle. As the years moved onward, the story of the rainy hill became less a memory than a feeling Rowan carried. He never told it loudly. He never tried to prove it. But now and then, when someone came into the shop exhausted from travel or worry, he would choose a softer lining, a kinder soul, a thread with a little more give. He would measure carefully not only the length of the foot, but the way the person stood, the way they leaned, the places where the world had pressed too hard. Then he would make shoes that helped them remember how to be carried. And on rainy evenings, when the village lamps glowed gold and the stone paths darkened under the sky, Rowan sometimes took a walk after closing the shop. He moved slowly without destination. His steps were gentle, his breathing was calm. The paths curved beneath him through the village, over the bridge, beside the gardens, and up toward the hill. He did not always climb to the shelter. He did not need to. The magic was not only at the top of the hill, it was in every softened step. It was in the way rain made the world quieter. It was in the way stone, though hard, could shine with tenderness. It was in the way a simple pair of shoes could help a weary traveler feel the earth as a friend. And whenever Rowan walked, he felt the village walking with him in dreams, the baker resting after the ovens cooled, the teacher asleep with a book open beside the bed, the fisherwoman hearing the river in her sleep, the children curled beneath quilts while rain tapped the glass, the elders breathing slowly in rooms warmed by embers, all of them carried by the same old stones, all of them held by the same quiet earth. The rain kept falling, the paths kept shining, and the soft shoes moved on. Now the village grows dimmer, like a candle seen from far away. The cobbler's lamp lowers, the rain becomes gentler, the stones cool beneath the night, holding every peaceful step within them. The old woman is somewhere beyond the mist, walking easily. Rowan is asleep beside the warm stove, his hands relaxed, his breathing slow. The soft shoes rest by the door, ready for another rainy path, another quiet evening, another kind journey. And you too may rest now. Let the rain take the last small thoughts of the day. Let them slide away from you, down the glass, over the sill, onto the shining stones below. There is nothing more to follow, nothing more to carry, only rain, only softness, only the hush of old paths beneath a dreaming sky. Your body can grow heavy, your breath can grow calm, your mind can wander gently into mist and lamplight, where every step is easy and every path knows how to hold you. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well